Hi lovelies, this is Blossom and I have somebody with me today. Hi.
Hi.
Sitting next to each other. It's a bit weird.
It's different.
Yeah. So today we have lesson 14, which is not, again, like last week, not so much a lesson to study, it's just more to explore and to have a discussion and see what comes to us. We are not really prepared, but yeah, well, that's how it is, right? So today we talk about fantasy and fairy, and the whole topic came already a little bit last week with is it all real, and fantasy is definitely a part of it, and I thought you would be a good partner to do that because he is somebody who read like every fantasy book.
Not quite, but trying to.
Okay, and you didn't say your name. Say hello.
Sorry, hi, I'm Bear. And I'm looking forward to this.
So definitely it will not surprise you that for this chapter I will definitely mention J.R.R. Tolkien, who is a huge part of our life.
Definitely,
really.
yeah.
And we can see in Tolkien's stories, as we have the elves, for example, Tolkien took them from northern mythology, the Yosalfa, is that right? I don't know. Yosalfa? I tried again. Yeah, it should be like that, something. The northern elves.
The northern elves, yes.
And there we can find similarities, but we can also find similarities with the She from Irish mythology. So that we can see the dwarves from Tolkien's stories are very similar to the northern dwarves. So we have similarities there as well. So when you go through his stories, you will find a lot from Germanic, northern, or even Irish, not so much, no, mythology. But that is a topic in itself, and it's huge. And if you would explore everything, that would take forever. So we are not doing that now or ever. I'm not doing
video.
it. It's gonna be like 4 hours. Sorry. And in general, fantasy has actually a bad reputation. And I don't agree with that, because I think fantasy is a really important part, and also while working with fairy, fantasy definitely has its place. And I'm gonna read that for you now, what Tolkien wrote, and then I let you talk. Sorry about that, I just want to read that. So what Tolkien says about fantasy when it comes to escapism, and the word escape, what he says is, I have claimed that escape is one of the main functions of fairy stories, and since I do not disapprove of them, it is plain that I do not accept the tone of scorn or pity with which escape is now so often used, a tone for which the users of the word outside literary criticism give no warrant at all. In what the misusers are fond of calling real life, escape is evidently, as a rule, very practical, and may even be heroic. In real life, it is difficult to blame it, unless it fails. In criticism, it would seem to be the worse the better it succeeds. Evidently, we are faced by a misuse of words, and also by confusion of thought. Why should a man be scorned if, finding himself in prison, he tries to get out and go home? Or if, when he cannot do so, he thinks and talks about other topics than jailers and prison walls? The world outside has not become less real because the prisoner cannot see it. In using escape in this way, the critics have chosen the wrong word. And what is more, they are confusing, not always by sincere error, the escape of the prisoner with the flight of the deserter. So what are your thoughts on that? Just take a bit of time to think about what fantasy and escapism actually means to you and how you would define it. How would you?
How would I define it? That's a good question. But I kind of see it like Tolkien means it and says it, it's come into a bad aspect. For me, an escape can be good, not necessarily a bad thing. I like escaping into a different world, not because I'm frustrated or alone in this world, but because it's just a new aspect. It's just something new and an adventure and something to look forward to. So escape is definitely not a bad word for me. I guess everybody has to ask themselves that question for themselves. Are you escaping for a good reason or a bad reason?
So what is it, when we think again about fairy and fantasy and the stories that were written, so again Tolkien was it's the only book I ever read. Tolkien is somebody who for him it was really important to create something that is believable, as close to reality as possible, and he didn't overuse magic because he thought that magic is used too much in many of fairy stories or fantasy, and it's not believable anymore, and also that it was mostly used for manipulation, and that's not how he wanted to bring in magic. For him, magic was something very powerful, but we find it only very subtle in his stories. Actually, it's not like bah, in your face. So there's that.
Yes, in the details. It's very slight. There's no big fireballs. There's nothing like that. It's really subtle.
Yeah,
the magic.
because
It's very subtle.
The magic of the elves is very different. It comes from a very natural place. For example,
Yes.
it is absolutely believable, and his whole world is very believable, which leads then again to the word sub-creator. So he went with that word. We had a discussion before.
Yeah.
So he was, Tolkien was Christian, so he believed in God as the creator. But he also thought that we cannot create something from scratch, but we can take what is there and create something else. So being the sub-creator. And so he built up his worlds as a sub-creator. And yeah, so his world that he created is so believable and relatable to us, for many of us. Even people wrote, I checked it up, it doesn't exist in English, only in German. There was a German writer who wrote about Middle-earth and the longing for Middle-earth. In German it's called Sehnsucht nach Mittelerde. So longing is the right word, longing for Middle-earth. And why that is. So there was a whole book written about that. And then we have to think a bit further, I think, with, is it something that echoes this world, echoes from the past, is that some kind of memory? Do we create it? That is that whole discussion.
We have been thinking about it and talking about it. For example, where did those ideas come from? For any author, really, do you hear echoes of a parallel world, the reminiscence of maybe of dreams or history to some extent, and that just sits in your head, and you write it and you feel that you're writing something that already existed or maybe still exists on a different level? Or is it simply a fairy sitting on your shoulder talking to you and telling you, write it? So there's a whole level of ideas, where it comes from or what it could be, and it's very tricky and it's very interesting to think about those things, really.
Or is it that when you write it, that it comes then into existence? So
Exactly.
we had the discussion, how far does it have to go? So simply because you write a story, it becomes somehow real in another universe, in another dimension, or whatever you want to use here, however you define those things for yourself. Is that possible? Or do we need a collective who experience your story, a collective who, more people...
A collective of minds that as soon as, like when Tolkien wrote his story, it became real for him. And the more people read it, the realer and the more manifested it became. Is that a possibility? Who knows? This is...
So I'm going to read it.
Is it already maybe strong enough just because one person wrote it?
Yeah, because when you really spend a lot of time on it, when I write now, I don't know, I just create a tiny little world, a tiny little story. I don't think it can come into existence. But if you spend a lot of time in it and you really are the sub-creator of a new world, is that enough to create a new world? Who knows?
No, but it makes you wonder. That's why then I guess the term happy place comes from. When you create your happy place, it becomes real for you, for example. But does it necessarily become real for others? Maybe if you would share it, it might. So.
Throughout this course, I often refer to R.J. Stewart, and there are many things I agree with him. But he also says in his book, for example, he says that fantasy is the fake sugar in the poison cake of materialism.
Oh, it's a bit harsh. I cannot agree with that.
No, I don't agree with that either. And I think it is funny because many authors of fairy will tell you how important imagination is, but hate fantasy. Well,
kind of goes for me. Kind of goes hand in hand.
It goes hand in hand for me as well. I don't know if I hit a language barrier here. That I don't understand why imagination is great, fantasy not good. So you're English. So do I hit the language barrier here, or?
I don't think so. I really cannot agree with that statement. I just simply can't. For me, it goes hand in hand. Imagination equals fantasy, and you cannot say that imagination is good and fantasy is bad. It's a statement I cannot agree with. No. I just simply can't.
Well, which is fine, you know. Even if you really love an author or you really agree with many ideas, you will never go through a book, I think, where you say, yes, all the time. There will always be statements where you think, oh. And that's good because it shows you think for yourself. So that's good. But yeah, train your imagination, and fantasy is part of that. Reading fantasy books, watching fantasy movies. I cannot say how much I am inspired by those things. For example, with Lord of the Rings. Sorry, guys. It is just something. I because of Lord of the Rings, I started drawing. I started making my own dresses. Started sewing. I started to play piano. I'm not good at anything, but at least I started because of that. Sorry, that was a bit...
Yeah, that went a bit shame.
But that... So, you know, you get so much inspiration of it, so don't demonize it.
No, definitely not, no. It's just with me the whole time, and from there, from Tolkien, I became interested in all kinds of different games, fantasy games, Dungeons and Dragons, as silly as it sounds. Yes, I'm a nerd. But I create my own stories with that. I create my own worlds for other people to play in. And yes, that's fun. What we do on weekends.
So we're not into medieval fantasy at the moment. We play Cthulhu now.
We've chosen a new
Cthulhu,
path.
but
It's H.P. Lovecraft's world
I
of
think
Cthulhu.
most people know Cthulhu.
Absolutely. So we're taking a different way now. It's not fantasy.
It's
but
definitely fun.
It's fun, yeah, definitely.
So we talked a lot about fantasy, and I will list the books as well on my in the written text, which may be a bit more organized than our talking, but you know, as I said, it should be a discussion, not so rigid in structure. However, for the books, sorry, which we could suggest, for example, Rude Rage by Stephen Watson.
Oh, that was a great find. I can't remember who found it. Did you find it? Or did
I found it.
You found it, yeah. It was a fantastic read. Absolutely fantastic. I loved it. Really loved it.
I know, but people don't know what's it about.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
It's good, just read.
Remember. Well, what Root Rage is about is a dryad.
A dryad.
A dryad,
What
sorry,
is it?
yeah.
Well,
A dryad. A tree spirit, if you want. It loses its tree, and it's really upset about that because its tree gets chopped down and it has no home. It has no place to be. And so it's looking for retribution to some extent. And it's angry towards humans because they destroyed the tree just to build a motorway, I think it was.
yeah,
wasn't it?
motorway.
And Tree Spirit gets involved with an organisation that is very against humans and kind of in a destructive way. And then this dryad meets a young boy who really loves trees, and she notices that not all humans are evil. And well, just read it. It's really great. It's short, so you don't have to plan it too long to read if that's a problem, or if you don't like reading large books. This is really a short book. So great read, fun.
So the next book, which is the more, that I count trees and tree spirits definitely to the fairy realm.
Yeah.
But when you really want to read about fairies as such, then there is the Iron Fae series by Julie Kagwa. Not sure about that, but you find it in the text. And there's definitely a lot of folklore scattered throughout the book.
Yeah.
We have the Seelie and the Unseelie Court, but I think in that book it's the Summer and the Winter Court.
And Winter Court, yes.
So that's maybe interesting. And we also have Puck from Shakespeare's Midsummer's Night Dream. Sorry.
Yeah.
And also Oberon.
Oberon, yeah.
is in it. So it is a whole series. I haven't read every book yet. I read 4 of 7, I think it's now. I may be wrong here. I've read 4. The thing is, it's a great book. The world, really, really fantastic. I really loved the world. The only thing that I don't like about it is we have the teenage triangle love relationship drama. And I'm not up for that at all. I don't like it.
It's a bit
and
much.
Yeah.
It took a bit overhand.
Yeah.
But there were very interesting aspects in it. I mean, she took a whole new twist on Iron Fates.
Yeah,
Really,
modern
modernized fairies, really.
Tech fairies. Yeah, that was really interesting. I really loved that idea.
It was actually a great idea. I kind of enjoyed that.
And then another thing that I haven't read yet, another book, but I'm coming to it very soon, is Lord and Ladies from Terry Pratchett, from the Discworld. So this I've seen a few times that it's recommended. I am currently in the Witch thing, so I still have 2 more books to go, then I come to that book. So there is apparently a lot of fairies and elves and really from the folklore going on, if that's what you're more into. Then War for the Oaks by Emma Bull is also currently on my reading list, and here's the blurb.
Eddie McAndrew sings rock and roll, but her boyfriend just dumped her, her band just broke up, and life could hardly be worse. Then walking home through downtown Minneapolis, on a dark night, she finds herself drafted into an invisible war between the fairy folk. Now, more than her own survival is at risk, and her own preferences, musical or personal, are very much beside the point. Wolf for the Oaks is a brilliantly entertaining fantasy novel that's as much about this world as about the imagined one. So, well, it sounds interesting. I'm definitely going to put it on my reading list.
Yeah, I have it already.
Oh, great. Fantastic.
It's the next one. Another book I can highly recommend is Quiet Places, a novella of cosmic folk horror by Jesper Bark. It is, even if the name says folk horror, oh my god, I can't say it. It definitely has fairy elements in it as well, again in form of plant, spirit, and it's so good. It's also shorter, I think. Huh?
Yeah, it was very short as well, yeah.
And I really love that one, so I would really recommend that. So now you have to go freestyle. Another thing you would recommend? There are so many fantasy books.
They really are, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I don't necessarily see that it always has to be a fairy in it to, you know, to count as a fairy fantasy. Because every book who has a dragon in it is, for me, belongs to that world.
It's part of Fae.
Yeah.
It's part of Fae. Well, you cannot miss out on the Harry Potter's reading. It's Fae.
Yeah, well, yeah.
There's dragons, there's unicorns, there's all sorts of things. There's magic.
Yeah, that's true.
More elevated magic, maybe not so subtle, but I guess you could put them in there too.
Yeah. Well, let's go to movies.
That's more tricky.
That's not tricky at all.
There's loads of movies.
There's so
Absolutely.
many movies.
They're just not always good, and that's where it gets a bad rep from.
Yeah, but what we can count as good is Labyrinth by Jim Henson. That's the name.
Definitely.
So that definitely has folklore elements of fairy in it, and it's fantastic. And there comes the new series on Netflix comes out in 2019.
This year,
for
the Crystal. Dark Crystal.
Dark Crystal is.
That's it.
Sorry,
it's Dark Crystal. That's the new. Yeah. Based on the old one.
Yeah.
Well, definitely a movie. The Last Unicorn. Who hasn't seen it? It's a classic.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Last Unicorn belongs to that list.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen that yet,
well, get ready for a sad movie, but watch it. Yeah.
Then one of my favorites, Merlin. Oh my god, I love that movie since it came out in 1998.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, 98.
Yeah, and since then I watch it 2 or 3 times a year. Movie with Sam Neill. Absolutely love it. It's a fantastic movie. By now it's kind of old in the special effects, but you can still... No, there's so much love in it, and it really tells the story of Merlin, of Arthur, of Lancelot and Guinevere, of... we have Queen Mab in it.
Queen Mab, the Lady of the Lake.
The Lady of the Lake. Everything is in there. Also a dragon for the dragon lovers.
Also a dragon.
Well, it's not good, but...
Where was the TV?
Yeah.
The budget was quite small, really, so...
And I talked already about that in the Faery Course. There is that stone giant being, and then it comes alive, and that is always my moment where I just squeal. I think it's amazing. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Absolutely brilliant. And I really love how much knowledge of the Arthur legend they put into it. It's really full of it.
It is. It is tricky to do a movie like that because we have different legends when it comes to Arthur and Merlin. We have the French version, we have the British, the English version, and the
Welsh version. It's a lot.
But they really managed to put that in nicely together. So there might be differences. Don't get too historical correct on here. So
yeah, that could be.
Yeah. So another one that is really good is I found that just last year is I Am Dragon, or it's called also Dragon Love is a Scary Tale, a Russian movie. It's amazing. I absolutely love it. It's so fantastic.
It's great. It really is great.
Yeah, it is great. It's great. It's a bit cheesy, you know. There's a love story involved, but it's
There
good.
is definitely cheesiness in it, but well, there's a dragon in it.
There's a dragon in
It compensates for the cheesiness.
it. We just need dragons.
We're very simple.
Yeah, dragon hard. I don't have that in the lesson.
Dragon heart. Yeah.
Well, it's a dragon in it.
It is a dragon in it. Aragon, you can swap in then as well. There's a dragon in it. There's more dragons.
Yeah, that's true. Another movie, Pan's Labyrinth. Ooh.
I like Pan's Labyrinth.
That's a good one. It's a bit darker. It's a bit grim.
It's Spanish movie. Spanish movies
are great.
movies are really actually quite fun.
Yeah, I love Spanish
they're
movies.
darker. I don't think I have ever seen a Spanish movie
That isn't
in
dark.
fantasy that is not dark.
Yeah, they are. Now, going from a bit darker to very whimsical and cute and fluffy. Tinkerbell! Disney Tinkerbell movies.
Tinkerbell.
So, I know as a serious fairy worker, I shouldn't be loving that, but I do. I love the Tinkerbell movies, and I know that every serious person in the fairy world says, well, that's not how fairies are. But they can be. They can be little Tinkerbells. It's possible.
Why not?
I've seen it.
If you do go from the thought that fairies turn up or show themselves to you how you will understand it, then well, definitely
We'll
Tinkerbell
rediscuss
can
that,
be
yeah.
Yes.
It can. Well, also, if you don't think about it as that, because normally when I do my serious fairy work, I try to step aside from the Tinkerbell thing. I'm not really influenced by the Tinkerbell appearance.
Yeah.
I think, yes, it's typical Disney, and Disney has its problem when it comes to, you know, presenting females. But just let's just relax a little bit. I think there is always a time where you can say, what it is.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way. Yeah.
No? Okay. It is a problem out there in the world. Not so much for me personally. I just think it's cute.
I just take it the way it is, really. It's just
I don't take it too serious. It's cartoon. It's fine. It's not real life. I know that it's not reality.
It's cartoon and it's purely entertainment.
It's purely, and they are very, very cute to think about movies. I love how angry she can get. Really like her temper, and I enjoy how they are part of the natural process when, you know, seasons, exactly, when the seasons change, how they are involved in it. We have the very powerful wind fairy in there, Lydia.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for example. And yeah, I really enjoy those movies. They are very cute, very entertaining, and yeah, I count them definitely to very movies you need to watch.
Yeah, you kind of have to.
Except you hate everything what is cute, you know. Each one has personal preference.
Personal preference.
Then one another series you can find. Well, we have it on Amazon, is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. You haven't seen it.
Oh yeah, no, I haven't seen that yet. No.
I've seen it. So there's definitely British fairy lore in that as well. There's only one season. I think it got either cancelled or it was never meant to be more. I'm not sure about that. Okay. But there you can definitely find, again, the folklore of fairy, which is interesting. Then I was just thinking now, Bright on Netflix, the movie Bright with the orcs and...
Oh, Bright! The Netflix production with casted Will Smith, was it?
Yeah, Will Smith.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's fantasy. It's magical. It's
Fairies.
fairies, orcs. Yes, you could count that towards it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thinking that the Shannara Chronicles would count in there as well because they are elves.
The Shannara Chronicles.
They're not.
Yeah. Okay, the series.
If fans are out there, sorry, but I don't like it so much.
It's not personal. I preferred the books personally.
Yeah, of course.
The books.
Yeah,
the books were good. The series was, for me personally, it was too new agey. Actually, it was very.
What do you say with New Age?
Well, it was so set from our point of view, not from the point of view where the books were written. I found it was too new. The series was just too new.
Yeah.
But that's just personal preference. The books were gret. It's very fantasy.
I just like that Gimli, the dwarf, is there, an elf. I like that
yeah,
fact.
that's kind of fun. That's quite funny.
But that was it. After I saw that. What else?
Well, it depends on how far you go. If you're interested in dragons, you can't miss Game of Thrones. Dragons are in there. I just wouldn't count it to Fae fantasies, just dragons.
Yeah. I don't know. Oh God, I cannot even say that on camera.
Well, say it and you cut it out.
I say it and see how many thumbs down I will get for that. I don't like Game of Thrones. What happens now? How could you? It's not possible. No, I don't like it.
I think I've been thinking about it, but I think that that Game of Thrones has actually managed to split the fantasy lovers to some extent, because I have hardly met a Tolkien fan who actually enjoys Game of Thrones as much as Lord of the Rings, because it's two very, very different worlds.
Yeah.
And I personally, I don't. I've read the books. I've seen the series.
Neither. It's good for me.
It's tricky. I don't know. It was too harsh, really. But
you don't want to be in that world.
You know you don't.
You really don't want to be in Westeros, but
don't
you want to
to
be in Middle Earth.
Yes. It's two very different things.
Well, we could discuss Game of Thrones very much, but we do that on a regular basis. So I'm not doing that on camera now.
No, we cut that out, I think.
Why leave it in? I want to know.
I think it went off topic. What else?
So there were only a few suggestions from us. If you have any, please let us know. A great book which involves fairy, a great movie which involves fairy. I'm sure we forgot many now.
Alice?
Alice? Is Alice fairy? Is Alice fairy?
Alice fairy?
Alice fairy? It's weird.
The Jabberwocky is a dragon.
Is that fairy?
Is that fairy?
Is that fairy?
Sorry, that was just popped into my head because I saw Tower of Wonderland now.
Yeah, I don't know if I count Alice in there. I always go more with the creepy Alice anyway. With Alice Madness Returns.
Oh, the game, yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely,
so, yeah, Alice is for me kind of...
Needs to be dark. Alice needs to be dark.
It is dark.
It is dark.
Comes from a dark place.
Sorry, drifted off there. Well then.
So, like I said, it's gonna be more of a... Well, you noticed that by now. It's more of a rambly video. And I always suggest you kind of a homework. I'm very serious about that. And this time, even more than anything else, have fun watching a fairy movie or reading a fairy book this week, and just enjoy the time of being enchanted again, like last week, and this week you do that again.
Definitely.
So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Much love and many blessings.
Thank you for watching, and bye-bye.
Bye.